And welcome back. In the last couple of videos, we implemented a few options regarding source address translation with NAT, with PAT, with using it in security policies versus a centralized policy. Now, we're going to focus our attention on destination NAT. Again, destination NAT is when on the initial flow of traffic through the address translation device, we're swapping out, for good reason, we're swapping out the destination address in the IP header before we forward the packet along its way. So with destination NAT, sometimes written out as DNAT, on the initial flow of traffic, we're swapping out the destination IP address. And here's a great reason why that would be important. Let's imagine we have a server right here on our DMZ. And let's imagine it's at .100. And then we have a user here out on the internet. So we'll call that guy user1. And in DNS for the server, we'll call it www.server.com. So in DNS domain name system, we've mapped out www.server.com to the globally routable address of 23.1.2.222, which is an IP address within our control, and the rest of the internet believes to reach it, it can forward traffic right here. So when the user does a name resolution for www.server.com, gets this IP address back from DNS, its destination address is now 23.1.2.222. And then when that packet hits this firewall, the initial translation of that packet needs to be the destination IP address. We need to swap out 23.1.222 and swap it out to be 172.16.1.100 before the firewall forwards it. And so on that initial flow of traffic, because we're swapping out the destination IP address, that's why it's called destination address translation. So if it's a one-to-one mapping, it would be destination NAT. So we have one IP address on the outside for one server on the inside. We have yet another IP address on the outside, let's say 223, for yet a different server on the inside. That would be one-to-one. That would be NAT. If we, however, start mapping individual ports, for example, 222 on port 80 goes to this server, server 1, and traffic to the same IP address, but yet to 443 goes to server number 2. And traffic going to port 25 at the same IP address, maybe that goes over to server 3. And that would be an example of many-to-one, where we have many servers hiding behind a single layer 3 address. And so that would be an example of destination PAT. So if we're talking with friends, and whether they call it destination NAT or destination PAT, or they just call it NAT, if on the initial flow of traffic we're swapping out the destination address, it is absolutely destination address translation. And if it's one-to-one, it's NAT. And if we have one address that maps to many servers with the differentiator being the port, that would be port address translation. And then to implement this on the FortiGate, we have two options. One is we can do it inside the security policy rule, or we could do it centrally. So let's do this. Based on this plan, let's go ahead and demonstrate both options using a security policy rule option, and then we'll flip it and we'll go ahead and do a centralized NAT approach. So you can see both examples of implementing destination NAT. So that's what you and I get to do in the very next video. I'll see you there in just a moment. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.